Yeah. Landers, Dave Landers, you got your hand up. You want to show us something? Never seen from
Yeah,
you.
sure. So anyway, getting on with what I'm working on a um, new to me kind of a project. This what I'm calling a sliced bowl or a sliced hollow form. I'm having a lot of fun with it. This was the first one I did. This bowl's about 5 inches in diameter, and those PEVA, those butterfly inserts, are about an inch or an inch and an eighth tall. I built a sled for the bandsaw, um, John Beaver style. If you've seen any of John's work, he makes bowls that are sliced with a similar arc like that. He puts them back together in a different way. But I'm just kind of having fun with this. There's a little hollow form that's about 7 or 8 inches tall. Those were walnut. This is maple. Uh,
Tell us how you're doing that now.
oh, okay. Let me show you a couple more, and I'll show you what I do. There's a walnut piece,
That's a cool effect. That's
and another walnut piece. That's about an 8-inch diameter hollow form. And this one I just finished. That's a flashlight inside, lighting it up. Um, that's elm. So the way I'm doing this, I've got one on the lathe right now. So I cut these for these inserts. I've got templates and a trim router and all of that. I buy the inserts and the templates from a guy in Hawaii, Mark Stebbins, BigIslandEngraving.com. So I turn a bowl or a hollow form. I cut the for the inserts so that there'll be a hole here, and a hole here. Um, there's a whole lot of back and forth to the bandsaw to get things lined up so that I get the cut going right through where the butterflies are going to be, and get that all kind of figured out and lined up and get those cut, and then I slice the bowl on the bandsaw, and then come back and put it back together.
How do you slice the bowl on the bandsaw?
I have a jig. Let me see if I don't have my camera over at the bandsaw, but let me see if I can bring it over real quick.
And you got one of those. You got a webcam on an arm overhead your lathe here. This looks like a webcam image.
Yeah. So let's see. Get all the stuff out of the way.
And lift the webcam up a bit so we can see a little more.
Yeah, I will. It'll stay. This arm likes to sag a bit.
Okay.
Let me try this. Come on, camera. There we go.
We're a
All
camera.
right.
Oh, yeah, good.
There's a sled that runs in the miter slot on the bandsaw and has a bunch of holes in it. And the other piece has I can put a dowel in one of a number of holes and fit them in there, and so this piece then pivots on that dowel and sits in the miter slot of the bandsaw. And there's a cradle here with I've got a 1 inch 8 bolt and an 1 1/4 inch adapter, spindle adapter on there, so I can screw my chuck into here. There's two pieces here. You can see the miter slot basically, and some wing nuts, so I can slide this piece up and down. So when it sits on the bandsaw, I can set the dowel at a particular hole, and that sets the radius of the arc I'm going to cut, and then I can adjust this piece to get it at the right place that I want it on the bowl or hollow form. So I just kind of cobbled this together. At some point, I'll probably end up making a better one because I've learned, a few things about how I like about how it works and stuff. But
Wouldn't
John
you,
Beaver
wouldn't you be able to just
plans for that.
wouldn't you be able to just drill a little starter hole and then feed a coping saw blade in there and saw by hand around there and skip all that's a great jig, but wow, complicated.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody could do that. I wouldn't do that. That sounds like work. So, uh, but that but that jig, cuts, lets me cut on the bandsaw right through there like that, and so just slicing that cut. And when you make that arc on a circular piece, it kind of ends up looking, it goes up and down like a wave. I've done some others. I'm experimenting with others with straight cuts. The nice thing about this jig is because it's got the miter slot for the bandsaw, I can make straight cuts by just sliding it. I can set this at some angle and make a straight cut at an angle. So I've got a lot of options for things and a lot of ideas for things I want to do with this.
What are the little metal bars on the side of your jig? That looks like wires, bent wires on the side.
Oh yeah, those are. That was an idea. Those fit in the. Let me get the right camera here. Those fit in the index notches on a Vic Mark Chuck. And so that was just an idea. If I needed, there were a couple of pieces that I did where I needed to make a couple of cuts at certain angles to get the effect I wanted, and so those helped out with getting the chuck rotated at the right, the right way around. So.
Well, now that we've seen how you do that, could we see a couple of those bowls that you showed before, those pieces, so that I think yeah.
Yeah. So
You
that's
do the-
one of the.
I have a question on those ones that had the wide space. Did you cut a section out of there?
Yeah, that's two cuts, and the little piece that was the little donut that came out of the middle got thrown away, and then it got put back together. So when it gets put back together, the grain all matches across that gap. So I didn't cut it and expand the gap. I cut it, and so it goes back together, and the grain all flows around and through the gap. So there's not a discontinuity there. It's exactly the way it was, just minus that slice of wood.
You
So
cut your
Dave,
pivas first, right? You cut your pivas in the solid blank
I have to
first.
cut the pillars first, yeah, so that it goes back together. And there's a challenge on some of these, like this one, for example. There's a vertical, just a straight stick instead of a butterfly, but it's in the middle of the arc. So figuring out where that's going to be before you cut it. There was a little math, and the math didn't work very well, and there was a little trial and error.
Well, so are those just moved apart? You didn't remove a half an inch of wood, or did you?
I removed a half an inch of wood out of these.
So that's two cuts.
That's two cuts.
Boy.
And I found that I need to actually, if I'm making a hollow form or a bowl or whatever, I need to basically complete the piece like I would otherwise. That is, hollow it entirely before I cut it, because if I try and cut through that without hollowing first, I get well, there's way too much wood there, and the bandsaw doesn't like that. Especially because the piece is not resting on the table; it's kind of suspended, so you don't want a lot of resistance on the blade. And then, and then you'd have to hollow it at the end, and I don't think the pevas, especially on a piece like that one, that would not be strong enough to hollow it after I cut it. So it's like, I'm going to make a whole thing, and then I'm going to cut it apart and hope I can get it back together.
One of the things that Raffin taught us early on was cut them apart and see how you're doing. Always sacrifice your practice pieces. Yeah.
Absolutely.
By
Oh,
the way,
I assume you sand them once you have them apart in the inside.
Yeah, that's kind of an advantage. If you take a hollow form apart like that, you do get to sand the inside. a whole lot easier than sticking your fingers or whatever through the hole, which I don't run my finger.
By the way, just to
Good job.
blatantly promote a guy that cuts a lot of wood for me, he has a company called slabstitchers.com online. He makes the jigs, he makes all kinds of butterfly inserts and all kinds of shapes. So if you want some variety, take a look at slabstitcher.com. I put it in the chat. So
Okay, and the place I'm getting them from, his website is bigislandengraving.com, and he makes the templates and the inserts in variety of woods and variety of shapes, and the it's hard to, once you find something that works, it's hard to start experimenting with other stuff. So,
Well,
I have a
speaking of
quick
stuff that
question.
works. Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a quick question. Do the the butterflies the same thickness as the wall thickness of the bowl?
no, I like them. I don't want them to go all the way through. So I don't know if you can see in any of these. Probably not, because
We've seen in that one, and we see in the vertical. We see in that one too. That's about halfway through.
yeah, it's about halfway through. There you can see there. That way, you get glue on the bottom surface, on at least the top and bottom of that butterfly. You get a little more glue surface. If they went all the way through, there'd be two things. One, you wouldn't have as much glue surface, and then you'd also have to try and figure out how to sand flush on the inside, which on a hollow form would be a real mess.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.